What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Heat and Soul Podcast. Today I'm here with Coach Hahn. He's Butler alumni, Indiana All-Star. You're most winning coach in Center Grove basketball history. How are you doing today?
Great, and I appreciate you having me. Feels good to be in the main gym doing this podcast. It's kind of a cool setup.
We've got the cool background. You helped us figure it out. The baskets in back, got all the state championships, it looks like, in back of us, so it's cool. Or state runner-ups. State championships are on this side.
That's right.
But I'm excited to do this podcast with you. Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about high school basketball when he played, which I think is the best era of all time. I don't know about you. Maybe in Indiana high school basketball history.
I think the talent was at some of the all-time high, and I think the kind of basketball that was played was really good, but in Indiana, there's been so much talent over the last 80 years. You look back in the 50s and 60s with some of the people that have played. This place is just there's a reason why they call it, the state of basketball in the entire country.
100%. And we'll talk about his college basketball as well, which I guarantee you have stories from that as well. Some crazy stories.
Yeah, good stories. Some I can't share, some I can. But just, good memories, and honestly, really good people.
Okay.
That's usually what it's about, being surrounded by good people.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and pray over the podcast, so let's go ahead and do that. Lord God, Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything you blessed us with. Thank you that we can have Coach Hahn on. We pray for him and his family. We pray for my family, and we pray that this podcast impacts people all over the world. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So I want to talk about your start in high school basketball. How did that, what grind did you have? Like, how did you work out? What got you to where you were at?
So growing up, I was like most kids. I played 3 sports growing up: baseball until I was 12, football until I was in 8th grade, and our community was just kind of known for being a basketball program. Newcastle had legends like Kent Benson, Steve Alford, Brandon Miller. You go down now, Mason Gillis, who's at Duke. You go down the line. It's been a great tradition there. And I wanted to be a part of it. When I was a kid, I would go to the high school games, and there would be 7,000-8,000 people, almost filling up the largest high school gym in the world. Yep. And it makes you want to be there. So when I got to freshman year, I decided just to focus on basketball, and I started working, almost to a fault. I think I burnt myself out at times. I worked too much, too often. But it never felt like work. Because I really enjoyed coming in and competing every day, whether it was a summer open gym or, a 6 a.m. workout, or coming in with my dad at 9 o'clock in the morning in the summer, or back again at 7 o'clock at night. I loved it. It was kind of like my cathedral. I would go in, no one would be in the gym. We'd turn on the flag light because they wouldn't give anybody keys to turn the lights on. So you'd turn the little flag light, which was a flip, and the light would come down on one side, and you just work. And whether it was 11:30 at night or, like I said, 6 o'clock, you got your work in. And it was just such a special feeling to have that place to be able to work out.
Yeah, I mean, you've come from a winning culture in all aspects of basketball. I mean, you won a state championship at Newcastle your junior year, right? Yeah. Your junior year you won. Who'd you guys beat?
So we beat Jay County, who had a good team, a couple, 2 or 3 college players that were on that team. I'm not going to lie, I'm thankful for it and proud of what we accomplished, but to me, you got to win the 4A, you got to win the big dog. And when I won it, the game after me was Muncie Central, that had 6 D1 kids on their team, playing LN that had 5 or 6 D1 kids with Greg Oden and Mike Conley. So I don't think I would have one of those if it wasn't for playing, if it was 30 years ago playing old school Indiana high school basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that accomplishment, but there's always an asterisk in my mind because I don't think we would have beat the top dogs that year in the entire state.
Yeah, okay. And then you come from a winning culture also at Butler as well, with a couple national title appearances and Final Four appearances. So what is that like, coming from that winning culture, and how do you implement that into your coaching style now? What did you take away from a historic coach of Brad Stevens, who's coached collegiate level and in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think as you go along, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by really good coaches.
Yep.
My high school coach was a former college coach at the University of Evansville, and he moved to Newcastle. I think he coached 17 or 18 years and did a great job there, and was really hard-nosed, in your face, intimidation, like you're going to play because you fear me, kind of thing. And then I went to college, and Coach Stevens got hired my first year. Our college coach left and went to Iowa. Todd Licklider, that was the coach at the time that recruited me, and then Brad took over.
Okay.
And his coaching philosophy was totally different, but he didn't have to do that because he had brought in a culture of guys from all across, really, Indiana. It was mainly a group of Indiana kids.
Because who was on that team?
Sprinkled in with, some outside forces.
Hayward?
I mean, Gordon Hayward obviously was the big name, the pro. Shelvin Mack played in the NBA for, I think, 6 or 7 years. Matt Howard was a guy that played in a lot of summer leagues.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, with floppy hair.
Yeah.
He was from Connersville, Indiana. Tough, hard-nosed kid. And then we had really, really good pieces around that big three. Just a lot of glue guys that did their job, played their role, and was all
hit
about
shots
winning.
when they needed to.
And was
Made
all
the
about
plays.
winning. So we were lucky to have those three guys that were really special basketball players, but then everybody else kind of helped around,
filled in
when we could. Yeah.
But
And then coaching. So from there I went to Ben Davis right out of high school.
Okay.
And was extremely lucky to watch a guy take over a program. And a guy that's an Indiana high school legend in Mark James. He's won a state title at BD. I think he coached 24, 25 years at Franklin Central before he left. And then he was at Perry for 4 or 5 years. And now he's at Triton Central. But that was really important. I think that might have been the most important step for me, to watch how someone comes in and tries to change everything to get it the way you want your program ran. I think that was one of the most critical pieces for me, to watch him do that.
And you implement some of that stuff into your
coaching
philosophy.
I think everything. I took bits and pieces from every single coach. I took some from my high school coach, and I even look back to middle school. Like, there are certain drills that we do or things that I saw at an elementary level that I still will work on it, because it may be a skill development thing or a attention to detail thing that sometimes you forget about when you're coaching high school kids. And so you got to go back in and that piggy bank of all your stuff and think about what works and what can make the group better at that time.
Okay, yeah, for sure. And then we'll pop a picture up on screen of this. But this is we'll first talk about your AAU team, and then we'll talk about the Indiana All-Star team that you were on, and filled with NBA greats. Well, not greats, but I mean, good players in the NBA. I mean, a lot of them were pros.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and talk about your AAU team first. So we'll go ahead and pop a picture up on screen of that. So can you go ahead and tell us about that, who you played for?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get picked up by a guy named Pat Mullen and Tom O'Brien. And back then we were called the Spiece Central Stars. And he saw me playing, I think it was 7th or 8th grade. I was playing with my school team up at a tournament in Fort Wayne, and he watched, called my dad the next week and asked if I wanted to come to a little tryout, a workout for the next year. And he also picked up Matt Howard, who was at Connersville at that time.
Yep.
So he and I became best friends, back in 8th grade. We went, we played, and we got put with a really good core group of players. When you looked at our team, we didn't have any. I mean, Juwan Johnson obviously played at Purdue, was an All-American, got drafted by the Celtics, played professionally overseas, and I think he still might be playing overseas. But outside of him, we didn't have any pros, but we had a lot of really, really good players that, again, fill their role. I mean, if there's one thing that I preach as a coach, it's about figuring out what your role is and doing it to help the team win.
Yep.
And I learned all of that by playing with people like this and having the coaches that I coached with. But that team was special. Like, still to this day, when we have a guy getting recruited, whether it's, Matt Painter looking at a kid, or, Coach Shrewsbury from Notre Dame, they'll say your team was one of the most fun teams we ever watched play AAU, because we played unselfish basketball, we shared the ball, and we had a lot of guys that could really fill it up. And we talk, we're in a group text message still to this day, that group, and we don't get together enough, but when you spend 3 or 4 years with the same core,
Yep.
Which is different than nowadays, right? You see kids that'll play one weekend with somebody and the next weekend with somebody else.
They do that. Well, they do that in Europe now. Like, they just play. That's why those national teams are so good, because they play together their entire lives.
They do, yeah. And that's what happened with this group. We got to play, I think, 3 full summers together, almost 4. And it was just a really fun experience. I think we were 65-13 or something like that.
Some kids will play that in a summer.
Got a couple national runner-up tournaments. Probably the biggest game we played in, because we played everybody. We played Mean Streets at IU on Assembly Hall and the Adidas May Classic, and we were walking in the gym and guys were yelling in the stands, "Go home, Spies, go home," because Mean Streets had Eric Gordon and oh my gosh, how am I blanking his name? Derrick Rose. So two
Who did you guard?
2 all-NBA players, right?
Who did you guard?
They had just gotten done playing. We had just got done playing. And we went out, and I think we 40-balled them. We won by 40 points. We were up 28-30 in the first half. And the second half, we got up 40, and their coach told their player to stand there at half court and just let the clock run out. So they wasted the entire half of the game. I think the score was like 60-20. And that's how it ended.
Wow.
So that was a really good memory. Another couple, we played O.J. Mayo when we played down in North Carolina at the Bob Gibbons Tournament of Champions. That was a big-time tournament. We actually won that tournament, went all the way to the finals. And I can't remember who we beat, but it was obviously a good team. And then we played – see, back then there weren't all these circuits either. So you just played. If it was an Adidas team, Nike team, it didn't matter. You got put in a top bracket, and you had to go play, which made it so much fun because you were playing against
everybody,
high-level guys if you were fortunate enough to be on one of those teams. But the Reebok tournament, our junior year, or sophomore year going into junior, we got to play the older Spies team. So the older Spies team had Greg Oden, Mike Conley, Josh McRoberts from Carmel, Eric Gordon, Daquan Cook. And I know they had someone else coming off the bench. They had 5 pros, and 3 of them were almost all NBA, all league guys. And we lost by 10, and it was packed. It was, one of those box gyms out in Vegas that aren't very big. The bleachers go all the way to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was packed all the way. I think we were in the round of 16 or round of 8, and we were playing up. And that experience was just so much fun, getting to do that. And, again, same thing. A lot of coaches, a lot of people still will talk to me about that game that we're out there watching because it was just really good basketball. Then the following year, we got out again to the Elite 8, or maybe it was Final 4, and we got to play the SoCal All-Stars.
Okay.
So back then they had a guy by the name of Brandon Jennings that played for Milwaukee Bucks.
I know who he is.
Rosario Sidney that played for Mississippi State and got drafted. And then they had Taylor King that played at Duke and was also really good. I mean, it was just another team. And I know there was another guy that was really good. But and I hit a 3. This is kind of I think that was probably the best game I ever had. They played in the 2-3, and I think I had like 30 points.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it came down to the wire. I was kind of trapped in the corner with like 6-7 seconds left, and I squeezed through the trap and shot it, and we were down 3, and I tied it, and the whole gym goes nuts. But my AAU coach called timeout, and they gave him the timeout. We took the ball out, missed the next shot, and we lost the game to go to the Final Four. But like, I think back and you see me smiling, like those memories of playing some of those high-level guys in those atmospheres, it was so much fun.
Is that your favorite part about basketball, or is that your memories that you've made? Is that your favorite part about basketball?
Honestly, I love the daily grind of the work.
Okay.
I like just being in the gym.
Okay.
Like, still to this day, I'll come in here and shoot around, or now I'm bringing my 4th grade son in, once or twice a week, and we'll work for 30 minutes, not much, because I don't want to force him, but just the ball bouncing, empty gym, the
sound
echo,
of the net.
the sound of the net.
Yeah,
my dad still says the sound of the net is his favorite sound in the world.
Yeah.
And so those experiences made everything special, and it's why I'm still a part of the game today.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that, I wouldn't want to coach anymore. I'd be moving on and doing something else. But it was the major part of my life for the last probably 28 years, and I'm 36. So since I was 8 or 9, basketball has been kind of it for me.
Okay, so you played against all those great players, all of them.
All of them.
Who was the toughest?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. SoCal All-Stars. I forgot the biggest name of all of them. Kevin Love.
Oh,
Kevin Love was on
wow.
that team. So Brandon Jennings, Kevin Love, Rosario Sidney, Taylor King. So that just really lucky to be on a good AAU team that was able to experience that.
So you played against all those great players that played in the league and played professionally, and a lot of them played in college. Who was the best player you guarded? Best player.
The best player that I've ever played with, he was actually on my team at Butler.
Okay.
And his name was Mike Green.
Okay.
Mike was kind of an under-the-radar All-American. He played at Towson and then came to Butler, had to sit out a year, and then got to play my senior year of high school, and then got to play my freshman year. And that's the guy that I had to guard every day. I've never been intimidated by a guy in my life, but Mike had this demeanor as a point guard. He was a tough inner-city kid that came in, and, I mean, he just dictated everything. You know, he would yell at coaches. He would yell at managers. He would yell at if someone was walking up top in the middle of practice. He just controlled everything. And he's the toughest and the most in control best player that I've played against or with. The other guys obviously are super talented and have great careers. Some of the names I mentioned.
Derrick Rose,
not
Eric
taking
Gordon.
anything away from them. But just from my perspective, Mike was a guy that I respect more than anybody.
Because you went day in and day out with him, having to guard him,
Yeah, I mean, he just made everything miserable on you. It was every day you would go in and you would try, and he just –
But he made you a better player, didn't he?
He made you tougher. He made everybody around him tougher. Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And then what is it like being – because you guys went deep in the tournament multiple times. What is it like going on those deep runs? What are practices like? What's the locker room like? Is it more intense than the regular season? What is it like going deep in the tournament?
Well, I'll say this. I think one of the things that I try and do as a coach is instill the hard work and the effort and intensity of summer into what a regular practice would be like.
Okay.
And I think that was probably the biggest separator for us in college. Our open gyms, you couldn't tell that it was for a national championship or it was just an open gym in the summer with no air conditioning in Hinkle Fieldhouse because there was a winner's court and a loser's court. And we had guys from overseas that would come back and play. We had Pacers. Roy Hibbert would come in and play with us. It was so competitive. Like, you hated getting sent to the West Gym. And those off-season workouts were just as intense as our first practice.
Okay.
And just as intense as our tournament run,
Okay.
One of the things that I think our Coach Stevens, and the staff did such a great job of was they tapered practice.
Okay.
So, like, we never, even in the middle of the season, we never practiced longer than 2 hours. And by the end of the year, we would be in and out in 45 minutes, 50
we do the
minutes,
same.
maybe
We do the
an
same
hour.
thing.
Maybe an hour. And I tried to.
You've implemented that into our practices.
That was one of the things I took from him, because if you're not in shape in February, what are you doing? You're trying to stay sharp and crisp. You're wanting guys to get extra shots up,
but not wear your legs out at the same time,
and feel good about themselves. Yep. If you haven't built the toughness up at that point, it's not going to turn on in February and March. So we try to really work hard on those things early, and then taper, get guys feeling good about themselves, make sure the system's in place. And that was something I got from those guys. And they were like, it was unbelievable. We were so efficient, in and out in 50 minutes at the end of the year. And then guys that wanted to stay and get shots up would. Guys that wanted to come early would. And if you wanted to come later, your legs weren't burnt out to get some shots up later.
Yep.
So you just always felt really good because of the way we did it. Now, the 50 minutes was, you were getting after it.
Yeah.
It wasn't
easy. Yeah.
No, it was a very intense 50 minutes, but that was all you needed.
No, you've implemented that with us, because like even when we went to sectionals and stuff like that, like our practices were 45 minutes, 30, sometimes even 35 minutes. Like, they were quick and we were out of here, but everything was done in a timely manner.
Yeah, and I think you just have to, you got to get a feel for it.
Yeah.
If
what
you
group
feel like,
you have.
Yeah, group you have. If you do have upperclassmen, do you have younger guys that need the longer practices later in the year? When you have veterans, that changes things. But it was one of the things that I took from Coach Stevens that I still believe in, because in high school, my coach was a 3-hour-a-day practice guy. And it would just, we're playing for the state finals, and we're going on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're going 3 to 6. And I just remember the season would be done, and you'd be achy and sore, and we were tough. Don't get me wrong, we had a toughness about us, but those days of long practices, to me, I don't know. I prefer this version, and I think a lot of players do too.
Yeah, because it's easy. It's easier on their body, especially with like how physical the game is. Like, and you're taking a beating, like depending on who you play, right? But I mean, you're going to take a beating every night you play. So, and sometimes even in like tournament games, you'll play 2 a day, right, on Saturdays. So it's like, man, you don't want to wear your body out to where you can't even move at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's. And you hear about this more with NBA, the management of their bodies and stuff. You don't do that as much in high school or college, but I just think it's such an important part of not only physically but mentally being sharp as you go through a 6-month grind, because it is. It's a long season in high school, much longer than any other sport. No other sport could be 5.5, 6 months.
You're going November to
end of March,
dang near April.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going a really long time. I mean, you got to push your body to limits. So what was recovery like for you in college after games or even after practices?
I mean, just your typical stuff. Like, we didn't have great facilities. We didn't other than Hinkle, we didn't have a great training room.
Until those national championship runs
and it's changed. I mean, things
until those national championship
you get in the Big
came.
East, right? Yeah. And you got to change your stuff or you're not going to get Big East caliber players.
Yeah.
But that was kind of one of the things that I take a lot of pride in was we had the same jerseys for 4 years.
Wow.
I mean, that same uniforms. Our practice jerseys looked the same. Now, we would get new practice jerseys each year, but it was the same look. Nothing changed, even with the wins from junior year to senior year when we went to the national title game, and then we come back the next year, same jerseys. I think that really made guys just humble and hungry still to continue to compete. Whereas nowadays, our high school, we get 3 new jerseys every 2 years.
Yeah.
You get
practice
red,
jerseys
white, black,
every year.
gray, you get so much stuff nowadays compared to what it used to be like. So
what was it like going on your national championship run? Can you walk us through the games? Not necessarily walk us through, but give us some stories.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I always get asked, like, what's your most memorable moment or the thing that you take away from all of, because it's really a 4-week experience. It's 4 straight weeks of you trying to move on to the next thing and not get too caught up in the moment. But when we came the first year to Lucas Oil Stadium and we had a shoot around, and a 1-hour shoot around was all you got on the gym, and we had 30,000 people, is what they said. We're in Lucas Oil to watch us shoot around. I actually got to stand on like the corner of the court, and I walked out and looked and just got to soak up that moment.
Yeah.
And how big it was and how just neat of an experience it was. That was, of all the things, that was probably my favorite thing in all of it.
Really?
We had buzzer beater, game winners, tip-ins at the buzzer, guys making free throws with time expiring. We had all of that, and one of my coolest memories was by far just stepping out there and just being able to soak it in. Because if you're on a team that is about winning and they know their roles and you're trying to do things right every day, that group, the second we would win or the second we would move on, it was, okay, what's next? What's next? Let's get our bodies right. Let's get back to the hotel. Let's get our studies. Like, you didn't really sit back and think about it because you were just so ready for the next step. And I think that's a recipe for a lot of winning programs, just winning people. When you think about it, those are the people that don't get caught up in the moment, highs and lows. You're going to go through that no matter what you do in life, coaching, sports. But you have to be prepared to take that next step. And when you do that, you look back, and then a lot of times you accomplish something special.
Yeah. So where does the slot, it was the right slot, top of the key corner, or top of the key 3 rank? Where does that rank at? National championship shot. Is that up there?
Yeah, that was up there. To be honest with you, I thought I was going to get the ball at the very end of the game when Gordon took the half-court shot. Because if you watch, Matt Howard sets a great screen right here about the gray line, volleyball line. And I think it was Kyle Singler just plows him. Matt steamrolls him.
Lays him out.
It was probably an intentional foul that they didn't call.
It was a Steven Adams screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Gordon lets it go, but if you look up about 20, 30 feet ahead, I'm standing up there. And my rule for me, this is kind of the way my role was in college. I got to go in, I would shoot 2 or 3 threes within a matter of like 5 or 6 minutes. If I made them, I got to play more. If I didn't, I would sit on the bench and I'd play 2 minutes. And it took me a long time to
What, your junior, was it your sophomore, like middle sophomore year? Is that about when you started playing consistently?
I pretty much played consistently all 4 years,
Okay.
but my role never changed.
Okay.
And that was, I'll say this, of all the things that have really helped me mature as a coach, as a player, that was my hardest year. I can remember, Mike Green, who I talked about, and AJ Graves were 2 almost all-American guards that we had. They graduated.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, Coach is handing me the keys. Like, I've got the keys for the next 3 years to a really good program that have been to the tournament like 3 out of the last 6 years. And then in walks Gordon Hayward. And in walks Shelvin Mack. And in walks Ron Norrid. And then we had some other guys that are just really good players.
Yeah.
And so my role, I was pretty much a 6th man. I think I started a few games my senior year. But it was a mental struggle for me to get over that hurdle of stop thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
Stop being selfish. Because there were times, even my sophomore year, I'm going, I got 2 minutes this game. And then the next game I'd get 16. And then the next game I'd get 5. And the next game I'd get 21. And I had to learn to deal with that. So many kids go through that, and nowadays they just leave. They just go because it's tough.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciative of that experience now because I can talk to my kids about it.
Yeah.
I can talk to my daughter, my son. I can talk to you guys about that experience because I felt it. And I know it's lonely. You feel lonely. You feel isolated. You feel like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. You hear about all these people talk about anxiety and depression, and that happens with athletes with playing time. Little things like playing time or how much you score. Those are all things, your world is your world. It's the biggest thing in your life. And for me, that was just such a pivotal moment in my life where I grew up and I just started to accept it. And then I started to try to figure things out. Like I had this really quirky thing that I would do in college where I would go out and I would shoot for about 10 minutes and get loose before a game. And then I would go sit down for 5 minutes. And then I would get up and I would come flying off of a double screen or a screen and shoot a 3 like I just checked into the game. I started doing things like that because it mentally prepared me.
Because that's what you were going to come out and do. Because you're coming off the bench and you were probably coming off. You were coming off a screen.
That's what I would. My job was to come in and try and spread the floor, make threes, get the ball moving, and when I was open, take a shot. And so I just got pretty good at it, and that's what I figured out.
What was your best game in college that you think you had?
I had a couple games that I probably scored 15 points. The Final Four game against VCU was a really big game for me. I hadn't played much the game before in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. It was one of those, you play 16 minutes, you play 5. And I hadn't really made a lot of shots in the tournament, but I hadn't gotten a lot of shots. And I came out and hit my first 3. And then I hit a second 3, and then I had an up and under with 2 6'10" guys trying to pin the ball on each side of the backboard. And so that was probably one of my bigger games. I had another game. This was actually one of the things I told Trace was you need to go tell your Golden State teammates that your high school coach beat all 3 of them. Because we beat Draymond Green, we beat Klay Thompson, and we beat Steph Curry in my college career. Now, they weren't together, right? They were the superstars on their teams, but we got to play all 3 of those guys. But I had a stretch in college my senior year right before Christmas where I think it was over the course of 4 games I missed 17 straight threes. And I don't coach continued to play me. It was such a bad spot. Like every shot you're like, just go in, and you're shooting extra and you're shooting extra. And it wouldn't go. And then we play Klay Thompson in the finals. It was the Diamond Head Classic in Honolulu. And I hit my first 3, and then I think I scored 15 or 17 points. Now, Klay got me.
So you gave Klay Thompson buckets.
Well, I think Klay had 31, so I don't know if I'd say that.
Hey,
but
that's okay. You didn't have to mention that part.
We did get.
We could have kept it to where you gave Klay buckets.
Yeah, I know, but I like to give credit when credit's due. it was just, that was another pretty cool moment now reflecting back on my career.
Yeah.
And it was on Christmas Day. You know, my parents were obviously mentally struggling with me because I had missed so many shots. And then on Christmas, you just get this big present where you make a bunch of shots and you feel really good again. So pretty cool experience.
Was that your wish on Christmas?
That was my only gift I asked for, I think. That was it. Sometimes you got to beg for it, you know.
To get some threes to go in.
Get a 3 to go in.
Yeah. And then transfer portal. What do you think about it nowadays? How do you like it? Because you said you mentally had to go through things in college and to deal with it.
I think it's so situational. You know, like I see some of these kids leaving, and for me as a coach, I think of both sides, because if you're a mid-major coach and you have a great player and you have a good successful year, you're probably going to lose your top scorer to a high major that's going to pay him a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And so for the player, I'm happy that they're getting, probably some of what they deserve.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of that, though, I feel bad for the coach because
he's losing his best
player. He's trying to get promoted too, to be the next guy. And it's just hard. It's such a situational thing for each player and each coach.
Yeah. And then your Indiana All-Star team. You guys were loaded.
We were very talented.
Very, very talented.
I would say probably – I'm not going to say we had the best players ever in Indiana history, but we were probably the deepest team in Indiana high school basketball history, is what I will say.
Can you hand us the picture?
Yeah.
Dad, get us the picture. We're gonna show this one right here. So if you want to go ahead, and we'll pop a photo up on screen just like we did with the AAU team, but he's going to talk about some of the players that he played with, and we'll show pictures of who he's talking about.
Yeah. So on this team, and again, just really lucky to be able to be a part of it. You know, it's amazing what a sport can do for you. I was able to travel the world, play in front of 80,000 people, national TV, and a round ball did that for me.
Yeah.
And I got to meet some really neat people. But this group right here was just special. Like, from the start, the first practice was competitive. And I don't think that that's necessarily the way it always was for Indiana All-Star teams. But you start over, probably the most talented guy would be Eric Gordon, who was Mr. Basketball that year. Eric had a great career in the NBA, still trying to make his way. He's a
journeyman.
He's become the Zach Hahn of the NBA now, where he just shoots threes only and he doesn't do anything else. But I'm telling you, back in the day, I watched that guy take off from the free throw line and dunk. I mean, he was one of the most explosive athletes I've ever seen.
And then, I know we talked about this before, but he could have played professionally athletically his 10th grade year.
100%. I mean, his shoulders were as broad as a table, super long arms, just freak athletically. Shoulders were broad,
and he could shoot. He could
shoot from half court effortlessly. You know, you watch Steph shoot. That's what Eric shot like in high school. He was that strong that he could just get it there from anywhere, which made him impossible to guard, because you would have to guard him out here, and if you came out here, he'd go by you. If you sat back, he'd just shoot it from out here.
And if you step up too close, he's dunking on you.
Yeah, so he was obviously the catalyst, really special player. Then probably Jeff Teague was the next guy.
Okay.
And Jeff I grew up with so many battles against Jeff, and he was such a skillful player. Like, I don't know that I've seen anybody really read the game while they're dribbling like he did. You know, you watch guys like Chris Paul and Steve Nash, Mike Green that I played with in college. Jeff was just like those guys, and when he had the ball in his hands, he would make a play for somebody else. He could make a play for him. He was just such a elite.
He was savvy.
Elite on-ball player. Like, he could do whatever he wanted. And then when he wanted to, he was an elite defender. Now, Jeff, and he'll admit this, he probably didn't do that as much as he should have.
He talks about it.
He didn't give the greatest effort on defense, but his offensive game was pretty special. Then you got Robbie Hummel, who was drafted, I think played for the Timberwolves. Now he's got a big-time career doing broadcasting he's doing the Olympics. He's doing, they're all over the place. And he's, again, a great person, really good basketball player. If he didn't have injuries, he probably would have played until he was 33, 34 in the NBA.
Really? What was it, knees?
Knees, yeah. I think he blew it out at least once, maybe twice. So that's the third guy that played professionally. Juwan Johnson was from Franklin Central. Juwan played for the ball. He got drafted by the Celtics, played a couple years in the NBA, I think bounced around to 1 or 2 teams, and then he played professionally for the next 10. So our entire starting 5 were NBA guys.
At least 40 plus years of experience in the NBA combined.
Yeah, and then you've got some. Oh, and I didn't even mention E'Twaun Moore, who played for the Bulls. And I think also played for the Heat, the Miami Heat, or was it the Magic?
Did he spend a little time in New Orleans?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah,
like 2017-ish.
He bounced around.
He was more.
Bit,
he was like a journeyman kind of.
He was an incredibly smooth player. Like you would watch him and you'd be like, this guy, and then he would just go by you. And then you would cut him off and he would spin. He would already have his next move that he was like a chess player.
He was like Kyrie.
Yes. He would plan what he was doing. You would take it away and then he would make something else happen off the second and the third move. He wasn't the most athletic guy. He wasn't a 6'5" guard tearing the rim off, but he was so smooth when he played. And just, again, very savvy. So those whole 5. And then you had guys like Matt Howard, that was basically an All-American at Butler for 4 years.
Was that kind of cool growing up playing AAU with him, like just building that relationship?
Yeah, and I'll say this about Matt. Matt is still one of my good friends to this day. We go out to dinner a couple times a year. The most genuine guy in the world. Yeah. But he will dive through your legs to win a basketball game. Like, ultimate competitor, but then the most courteous, like nicest gentleman you could ever have off the court, which is kind of cool to see. Yeah. Because a lot of times personalities don't change. They don't change from the court and off. And he was just, there's pictures of him.
He had a flip
with blood just pouring off his head, and he's like checking into the game. He was almost insane to a point. But just such a neat guy, and his character is. He's just a great human being.
Now, who started on that team? You?
So starters, I was a starting point guard, believe it or not, over Jeff. So, Jeff, you can comment on that on yours. Because I did. I started over you. I think it was because Coach wanted me to pass to Eric and E'Twaun, and he knew you would just come down and try and make a play. So, basically, my job was just to get the ball to the best players and then spot up and be a shooter. But I think it was me, Eric, E'Twaun, Matt and Jawan.
We got to put Pike on the schedule for that one.
So, but so many other good players. Scott Martin played at Purdue, played at Notre Dame. Shantu Bear-Jones was up from the region. Really good basketball player, kind of like E'Twaun, really smooth. Clint Hoff, Nate Blank that played at Gardner-Webb and then played at UIndy. Mike Bazookas from Munster, and then Ben Botts, who was on back-to-back runner-up teams at Muncie Central. Okay. And the only reason Ben didn't win 2 state titles is because of Greg Oden and Mike Conley. Yeah. And that's the only reason, because they were loaded back then.
Now, did you have any historic coaches on that team at all?
There were several really good coaches. Our head coach was the LC coach for a long time, Mike Miller, and he did a great job picking the team. But I don't know that he even had to coach while he was out there, because there was just so much talent everywhere.
You just kind of let your horses run at the end of the day.
You do.
Because what are you going to – they're so athletic, right? You have nobody's going to stop you guys. How much did you beat the Kentucky All-Stars by?
Well, we actually so when we were juniors, we beat the seniors in one of the games, which doesn't happen very often, and that was with Mike and Greg on the team. And then our senior year, I think we beat them by probably 30, 35 each time.
Yeah, it wasn't even a competition.
And we played probably 12 guys.
Man.
It was a really, really cool group of guys to play with, too. Okay. And back then, things were different, because you would go and you would be with that team for 2 straight weeks. You would stay in a hotel. You would go to practice. You'd come back and eat lunch. You'd go to practice. Then you'd come back and go to the pool, get in the hot tub, relax. The girls were also there at the same time. So both all-star teams would stay for 2 weeks, and you would play the juniors 3 times, and then you would play Kentucky twice.
Okay.
So it was just, and I don't think they still have that same experience. It seems a little bit more choppy, but that allowed us to get prepared.
Do you think that was one of the best times in Indiana high school basketball? It had to be. Because Indiana was producing so many pros at that point. I guess between 2000 after you, there were a lot of pros produced as well.
Yeah, I think Central Indiana had a really, really big level of talent
for about 10 years. You think about a 10-year stretch?
Yeah, 10-year stretch of having 3 or 4 NBA guys. When you start in the early 2000s and you're looking at Robert Vaden and Justin Thomas, and there's Justin Cage. you just go down the list and there's just guy after guy after guy.
Yeah.
Josh McRoberts, and then about that 5-6 year period, it was just Central Indiana was really loaded. Whereas now we see
Once in a while.
It's a once in a while thing where we get one or two maybe around here, but there's also a lot of talent everywhere in the state.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really, I don't want to say shut down, like stopped, but I mean, after Romeo Langford and Trace, like after that, you really didn't see as many pros come out of Indiana after that.
Yeah, I think they're just different kinds of pros. I think some of those guys are ready, as like you said, with Eric Gordon being a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
He was physically ready. Trace was physically ready, but it took him until he was 23.
To mature, yeah.
Romeo was a 1 or 2 year guy. A lot of these guys nowadays, especially with the way college works, it's going to take them until their junior or senior year to get drafted unless you're truly special, because they're wanting a grown man. They're wanting a person that's physically ready to contribute.
Yeah.
They're not wanting to develop players as much as what they once did.
And it's hard to go one and done nowadays, especially with COVID screwed everything up with the transfer portal and everything like that.
It did, and you can also have a great year, transfer, and go get more money.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
Because you can make more money depending on where you go in college. I mean, if you're going to, than signing a two-way. Because I'd rather go make guaranteed money at a college than sign a two-way contract.
100%. Yeah, and that's why you see some of these high school kids leaving. And to me, that's the most frustrating thing as a high school coach, is knowing that you invest your time, your energy with your youth programs and your middle schools, and then you get this kid up here and you're really excited about him, and then he's like, I'm out. And fortunately for me, Trace stayed because he was getting recruited by 2, 3, 4 prep schools that wanted him to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm good here. And it worked out for him. He was able to go to college and continue to
McDonald's
get better.
All-American,
and
USA basketball, gold medalist. I mean,
you don't know until it's all said and done what the right answer is on whether a kid should stay or leave. Like I said, I think it's all situational. But I wish more kids would stay, because I think when you look back on it, the community support that you have, the memories that you make with your high school buddies and your friends, the money's great. You'll get the money eventually if you're good enough.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get this time back.
No.
You're not going to get that. And I think that's what a lot of kids are missing on that really important part of your life that, it was, if I could go back right now, I'd go back to 7th grade. I wouldn't change anything about my life, and I would just do it all over again because it was such a cool experience. Yeah.
Because you played in all those national tournaments. I mean, you had lifetime friends that you even played in college with.
100%, yeah.
And I think that's really, the one thing that I've noticed about basketball and even being in business with him is like the friendships that we make. I mean, that's a big part of it. Like the lifelong memories you make, the lifelong friends that you have. I mean, basketball's only, I always say basketball's only partial. I mean, it's only it's so small.
It is. It's a very connected and community type feel in Indiana.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes Indiana high school basketball special.
Yeah. I mean, the crowds that you get at some schools, not all schools get crowds. But I mean, it's just the atmosphere is great, depending on where you play too, which it really all depends on where you play with the crowds and atmospheres. You think we'll get a crowd this year?
I hope. Obviously, we've had 2 really good years in a row. You guys, our team went undefeated last year. That's going to be coming up next year. There's nothing like home court advantage.
No, there isn't.
And you would love to see every gym, and I like going into opposing teams' places that are packed.
It's packed.
That to me is,
and then you have the crowd talking and everything like that.
Yeah, it's that's what sports were once all about, and I think now there's just so many other things that kids can do, and people are doing, 4 or 5 different activities, and where back in the day, this is what you did. You came to a high school game on Friday night. I wish if I could change anything about high school basketball in Indiana, I would do 2 things. I would put a shot clock in, because I think that...
What would you put it at, 35 seconds?
I would put it at 35 or 40.
Okay.
To still give teams ample time to be able to run their stuff.
That would kill teams that would kill teams down south.
Yeah, I mean, it would make it harder for some teams because you got to operate and try and get your stuff a little quicker. But I would also change the fact that all of these guys can transfer one time by the time you get to high school. If you want to do it, go one time, and then you're there. And that's where you got to be, and you got to live out your career there. I think that's really important for those guys to be able to to pick and choose, and then
have
once
the
you're there,
opportunity.
have the opportunity, because you see it all the time. People change jobs, every year, every couple of years.
Yeah.
There aren't very many guys that stick with the same job like my parents did. Both my parents taught for like 35 years and never left. They sat in the same school, the same classroom for 35 years, and that's just not what human beings are about anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that opportunity is really important.
Yeah. And what are you most looking forward to this year? We're going to be young. We're going to be really young this year. We have one senior that's coming to play, and we're going to have a heavy junior class, but we'll have a couple sophomores this year. But what are you looking forward to this year?
I think the biggest thing that this group, and we saw success towards the end of the summer.
Yeah,
we started
for sure.
playing much better basketball, playing some really good teams.
Hitting shots. We hit shots too.
We hit some shots, which always helps.
Yeah.
But I think what I like the most is the competitive spirit of this group.
Yeah.
Like, I watched them compete all last year against a really good team in practice every day, and they never backed down. And sometimes they kicked our butts, and like that shows me that they're ready for that next step.
Yeah.
And that group has all put in the work, you included. That whole team has really taken the weight room serious and worked on their games. And in the off season, you got to make your individuals better before your team gets better. I firmly believe that. And we were able to see some really positive things this summer, and we saw a lot of guys get better, and they're just going to get better over the next 5 months. But the number one thing for me with this group is like how much fun you all have playing together. I see it on your faces.
Because we like playing together.
You do.
It's not like we hate each other.
No.
I mean, there's always going to be, I don't want to say animosity, but there's always going to be, you know what I mean though, right? Like you're going to have that anywhere you go. I mean, with jobs or anything like that. But we get along, I think, pretty well.
Oh, 100%. On the court, off the court. But the competitive spirit is what I'm most excited about with this group, because I know every day I'm going to come to work and I'm not going to have to worry about this attitude, or I'm not going to have to worry about this kid not going hard. They're going to come in and you guys are going to bring it every day.
We're going to get the job done.
And that gives you a chance to get better.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you get better, that gives you a chance to win championships.
Yeah,
and
it does.
That's what it's all about.
I mean, that should be our goal every year. I mean, we're going to be really young this year. We're going to play some older teams, but I think we have a shot. I believe it. I believe every year we have a shot. I mean, I don't care anytime. I mean, our sectional. Everybody says they should win their sectional. It's harder than it's easier said than done.
Winning a sectional in Indiana may be the hardest thing. Like once you get out of the sectional, I think it's a little easier to play in the regional, because that weight is off your shoulders of getting over the first hurdle. But yeah, I mean, this group, I don't anticipate any drop whatsoever from what I saw this summer.
No.
We finished the summer beating a top 5 team in Fort Wayne that they've been to the Final Four 2 years in a row and have everybody back. And we played really good basketball. We made shots, which is part of it.
We probably shot 70%.
But we didn't make shots in the other 3 games, and we still competed against 3 really good teams.
100%.
And so I think that is what's exciting to me, is now we've seen what our top level is, what we're capable of.
100%.
And now it's just about getting consistent.
Yep.
You got to be consistent every day.
100%. 100%. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. You got You got a story you want to share? You got anything else you want to add?
Gosh, let me just say this, and this is going to be, I'm going to sound like a 60-year-old coach now. Times were different back in my day, but let me say this to all the kids that are trying to work on their game. Like my schedule when I was in high school, we would get up, and this was before all the rules changed, and you could only do 2 days a week. We would get up and we would have a workout from 6 to 7 in the morning.
Yep.
I would go to school, lift during the day. We would have open gym after school from 3 to 4:30, and then I would get in my car and I would drive up to Lawrence North High School for AAU practice. Or I would drive to Butler and play in a college open gym, or drive to Ball State and play in a college open gym. And I did that for pretty much my sophomore through senior year. And it wore me out, but I wouldn't trade it for any moment, because I learned what work really is. And when I see kids work nowadays, when I watch kids say that they're putting in time, you can't not, like, there's not too much time you can put in there. You invest, because it will give back to you. You'll be rewarded. And even if great things don't happen, you don't get a scholarship, you don't get recruited by your dream school, whatever it is, you look back, and the biggest thing is you have no regrets. You look back and you're proud of the work that you did.
Because I've never heard somebody regret working hard.
No.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody come out and say that before.
No, and they don't. And I think then at the end, it's like the saying, shoot for the stars, or shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. That's kind of the motto that I think all kids, whether it's and not just in sports, academically, socially, like be a superstar, be the best you can be in everything you do. And that's going to set you up to be very successful and very happy in life.
Okay. And then what was your support system like at home?
So I grew up with 3 brothers, and I was the third. So that made things pretty nice for me because even at a young age, I was brought to every event. I was running around, and my dad coached high school football and wrestling, and then my mom coached volleyball when we were really little. And then by the time we got in like 5th grade, they stopped. And they really started investing in us and whatever we wanted. Take us to the YMCA to work out. Take us to the park to play against grown men as a 7th grader. Those are the memories as a kid that I loved. Like I got my front tooth knocked out by like a 45-year-old man who elbowed me, and we had to call the dentist and go in, and he like stuck it back up in there and sutured it so it would stay.
He had me do the same thing. Yeah. I played against some dudes on the Porter. We were at Incrediplex. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
It was up and. The first time I ever got dunked on, it was by some 6'6" dude. He was Puerto Rican, believe it or not, and he was on the national team.
Okay.
And so he made me play against grown men when I was younger too. So I have the same experience there.
Those are the times that I miss the most. Playing in college in the open gyms. But my parents, like looking back on it, and there was an article we got to do a cool article this year in the Indy Star about a parent that impacted us, and like my dad. He didn't bat an eye. Like we played an AAU tournament in Fort Wayne, and I shot terrible. I played really bad, and I got home at 11:30 at night, and I go, let's go to the gym. And he didn't say no. I'm sure he was tired. He didn't want to do it, and we didn't leave the gym until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he just rebounded. That was it. He just passed, rebound, pass, rebound. But they were so supportive, and neither one of them played in college. They obviously both coached in high school, so they understood what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is they just wanted to spend time with us. Whether it was a car ride 2 hours up to Fort Wayne and we talked and hung out, or coming in the gym and rebounding and watching, they were just very supportive. And one of the biggest things that I learned that I try not to do with my own kids, I try to say 3 things when my son gets in the car now because of the way my dad and my mom treated me. I always say, did you compete? Did you have fun? And then I say, I loved watching you play. Those 3 things I think are really important for a kid to hear initially. And then if you want to dive into some other things that happen, that's great. But those 3 things are really important for the kid to hear coming home. And my parents never talked to me about how I played. Then it was always if I had a good attitude or a bad attitude. If I had a bad attitude, they let me know. If I played well, we would just kind of talk about it. But it wasn't ever X's and O's. Just very supportive and trying to get me to behave in a certain way. I have a high character when I'm on the floor.
Yeah.
So again, really lucky to have parents that were like that.
We have the same experience.
Yeah.
It does it not sound very similar to what we do? I mean, that relationship sounds very similar to the relationship me and him have. We spent so much time together. It's unreal.
Yeah. Here we are in a gym that holds 5,500. It's one of the coolest gyms in the state, honestly. It's a great gym.
Just got the lights redone.
I hope, new lights, new court, everything, new rims last year.
New nets because we cut them down for county.
That's right. They've made a lot of upgrades to make this place special in the last 10 years. New locker room. Everything about this place is pretty much brand new. And it's because of the guys before us and the guys that have been here in the last 10 years. I hope that any of our youth that are watching this, they know how special of a place this is and how much of an opportunity they have to represent their community. And, it doesn't matter whether you're Leighton Ray that's going to be a 6th grader that's a really good basketball player, or Miles Howell that's going to be a 4th grader this year for our team. You go down the line, Eric Scaringe that's going to be an 8th grader this year. There's talent and kids that want to be great.
Yeah.
And I hope that they fall in love with the game and the work like I did.
Yeah.
Because I think that is what made my high school and my whole basketball experience so special, was that I didn't really see it as work. It was fun. It was something to do every day.
It's not like, man, I got to go shoot today.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, man, I got to go play basketball. Like, it was never like that with you ever.
No, and I think, honestly, it got to a point where probably middle of my junior year, if I didn't go shoot, I would have like a knot in my stomach.
Yeah.
I almost felt guilty, like I was letting myself down, that I'm not putting forth, my best effort. Now, I'm not going to say that kids should be in here working out for 3 straight hours.
No. It's too hard on your body to do that every day.
All of the youth, you guys got to get in, work for 45 minutes to an hour. Get after it. Go home, let your body rest, come back later and just do catch and shoot. There's different ways you can design your workout
100%.
to where you're not beating yourself up.
100%.
You gotta love it. Indiana high school basketball is the best. Center Grove has obviously been a top 10 program for the last 8 years since I've
Great
been here.
record. The last 2 years have been phenomenal with the records.
And the plan is we're not going to slow down. I think you see the talent coming up. You see what we have ready right now for next year, and we're just going to keep trying to build and make this place as good of a basketball program as we can.
Yeah, try to win championships. That's the goal at the end of the day.
Every year.
There's nothing else. I mean, that's really the goal.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is when you win championships, whether it's 4th grade, 7th grade, county, whatever it is, the individual stuff happens after the team stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids.
You saw that this year.
A lot of kids think it's the other way around. Like, I got to get mine to feel like I have success. But if you do all the team stuff, the individual accolades usually follow after. And that, to me, is what's really rewarding, is to watch guys get to live out their dream after they put the team first for 2-3 years within what we do.
100%. Well, thank you for coming on. We had a blast. You have some great stories.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, I hope everybody, all of our youth, get a chance to check this out. They get to come in this gym, and
It's the best place to come shoot.
I'm sure you'll get kicked out by a custodian or a principal, but you know what? If the gym's open, guys, come in and use it. That's what it's here for. It's here to get shots up.
Yeah.
So
it's not here just to collect dust.
It's not.
No,
it's not.
You don't want to have to wipe these floors all the time because it takes a long time. So you might as well get your shoes squeaky on it.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out. You can follow us on social media. Where can you follow Center Grove Trojan? Is it Center Grove Trojan Men's Basketball on Instagram?
Yes.
And Twitter.
Yep.
And Facebook, I think.
Yep.
As well.
Yep.
And then what? Yeah, you have Twitter. I already said Twitter. Well, he's got a personal Twitter, Zach Hahn, right?
Yeah, I think it's Zach3 Hahn. I haven't looked at it in a long time.
You can follow.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Heat and Soul Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.